Meeting being called to order. The time is 7:05. Welcome to the Hawthorne Board of Education general meeting. Public portion of the meeting begins. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the rights of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Business Administrator Board Secretary has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted on the bulletin board, the municipal building, communicated to the Herald News, the Record, and filed with the clerk of the Borough of Hawthorne. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carr?
Here.
Ms. Goff?
Here.
Ms. Ehrentraut?
Here.
Dr. Morell?
Here.
Mr. Palouse?
Here.
Mr. Reicher?
Here.
Mr. Totaro?
Here.
Mr. Turco?
Here.
Mr. Clavijo?
Here. Please join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Meeting regulations. During each regular meeting, 2 opportunities are provided for citizens to ask questions and to make comments. During the first opportunity, early in the agenda, the meeting is open to the public for the purpose of addressing items listed for approval on this agenda only. The second opportunity occurs just prior to adjournment, when citizens may address any subject matter that is pertinent to and/or directly related to the operation of the school district. Persons wishing to speak must, upon being recognized, rise, state their name, address, and subject matter. Comments and questions shall be addressed to the board president or the presiding officer. It shall be limited to 5 minutes per person. The board may or may not respond to issues raised by members of the public at the time they are raised. I will provide a response if and when appropriate. Persons participating via YouTube may submit questions to our Board of Education email address at hawthorne.BOE@hawthorne.k12.nj.us, which is available on our district website. When submitting questions via email, please be sure to include your first and last name, address, and your question. We will do our best to answer all questions in the order in which they are received. If for some reason we are unable to answer your question, someone from the district will respond using the email address you provided. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Please note that the board will not respond to comments regarding students or board employees in light of the privacy rights held by those individuals. Moreover, the board discourages comments about such individuals and will not be responsible for such comments. Members of the public who choose to speak during this public session should carefully consider their comments, since they could be held personally liable for any statements they make. Finally, please note that in accordance with district policy, the board will not officially comment or respond to any matter mentioned unless it can confirm that the matter has first been brought to the attention of the appropriate school personnel in an attempt to resolve the issue. Public be heard, agenda items only. Seeing no one, moving on, correspondence, Mr. Spruto, your superintendent's report, please.
Okay, thank you. I'll be a very brief report, and then I will turn it over to Dr. Dragone and Mrs. Pignatello and Ms. Weigert for their presentation. But just quickly, just want to congratulate all of our graduates. We had 2 wonderful graduation ceremonies last Thursday and Friday. I want to congratulate our 8th graders and look forward to having them here at the high school, and of course, our 12th graders, and wish them well wherever they may be headed. Also, our grades 6 through 12 summer school has begun, I should say, here at the high school, and I actually walked around today, and students were actively engaged in their classes, so it's good to see that. And the only other item I will add is that we do have a meeting scheduled, Diversity Alliance Committee meeting scheduled for Thursday. That may have to be rescheduled due to a number of participants who are unable to attend. So I'll let the committee members know. Right now we have 8 people who are unable to attend, and maybe I'm waiting for a couple of others to hear from them, so we may have to reschedule that meeting. And finally, I just want to acknowledge Ms. Engel. I know it's her last meeting with us tonight. Just want to thank you for everything over the last 6.5 years. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you. You will be missed for sure, but I hope obviously we'll stay in touch, but I wish you well. All right, and with that being said, I will turn it over to Dr. Pomona, Ms. Wager, and Mrs. Pignatello.
Hi everybody, it's me again. I brought my team with me. What's up? No, I think you can see on the TV. So we have a very short kind of overview presentation to share with you, something that we have been working on for months now, and has really kind of came to a beautiful fruition in the timing of the need for social emotional, the end of COVID, and kind of some of our ESSER funding, and it's like the perfect storm that came together in a good way. We are going to talk a little bit about trauma-informed schools and what our plan is for next year, looking at what we've already done and what we're doing moving forward. When we talk about trauma-informed schools and we talk about social emotional, we're moving beyond the idea of the mindfulness, beyond the idea of kind of refocusing on yourself, but really now helping those students that we know are out there that have such kind of tragic or traumatic events in their lives that not only impacts them on a daily basis, but impacts their schooling and impacts others around them. We felt that COVID kind of exacerbated this for a lot of students and a lot of people in general. And we really need to bring some more information, training, and resources to the district, not only to our students, but to our staff, to our administrators, to make sure that we're doing our due justice to kind of meet the needs of everybody and help those who need to be helped. With that being said, I really am going to turn it over to my sidekicks over here. Chris is going to start by just sharing with us kind of the why we're here.
Thank you, Dr. Pomona. Good evening. So when we started in September, we knew we were going to be facing challenges coming back into the school building. Students have been out since March. They've been isolated at home. Some of our families have lost loved ones. Families were feeling economic pressure as well too. Jobs were lost, and students were isolated. They weren't out socializing as they previously had been. You go back to before COVID, we already had some of our struggles with some of our students who were struggling just social emotionally, mental health, depression, anxiety's been on the rise. So we knew we were going to have challenges coming back, and we put measures into place. Support staff, the SAP position that we brought back here into the district. We had our Wellness Wednesdays. We brought additional PD opportunities to our staff as well too, so that they could better identify students that were potentially struggling and offering presentations and information to our families. With all that though, we still saw a significant uptick with our students that were struggling. Whether it was just simple emotional challenges and those who were really struggling with their mental health as well too. Again, specifically that depression and that anxiety. This year, specifically, I would say that the number of students that we sent out for school clearances, so school clearances, if you're not familiar, they would be students that were identified as potentially being at risk of hurting themselves or others. And we have staff members here in all of our buildings throughout the district that would perform an initial school risk assessment. And they make the determination that they would need further assessment outside of the school. We would refer out, primarily we use West Bergen Mental Health that has just been phenomenal this year with helping our students and our families. And they would perform a further assessment to see if the student needed additional support, whether it be sent to the emergency room or linking them up with a therapist. That number probably quadrupled this year in terms of students that we had to send for school clearances. Students who were hospitalized as well too, I would say probably tripled. And those are kids that were in some type of a mental health crisis and needed additional intensive support. So with all of that, we really put our heads together just in regards to what else do we need to do here to not only help those students that have been identified as really having struggles, but also identifying the students that we don't know about, because they're walking around the halls as well too. Elementary school, middle school, high school. And what we want to do is further train our staff members to be able to better recognize when a student is struggling. Also assess those students that we have consent from the parents and provide a depression screener. And that screener is really going to be utilized to identify students that we were maybe not privy to, so that we can better help support them here in a school-based fashion, and also link them up to supports as well too outside of school. And I then am going to turn it over to Mrs. Pignatello, who I think is also going to further discuss a little bit more in terms of what we might be doing from an elementary level.
So one of the things that we have discussed over the past several years has been, we're seeing these students in high school, and then we're seeing them, of course, at the younger ages, which is middle school. And we're always reactive to what's happening and not enough proactive. And so what we decided to do, besides the depression screener and identifying those students at the upper level, is go down to the lower levels and discuss the adverse childhood experiences. So the adverse childhood experiences would be anything from like divorce in the family, death, all the way to the more extreme of like domestic violence, that kind of thing. So, when you look at how many ACEs a child can have, you think back to your own lives or just even basic things that have happened to you. You can have one ACE, you can have two, you can have three. And when you think about COVID, on top of all this too, COVID in and of itself was an ACE, right? We had them in the homes, isolated. There could have been a death in the family, that's a second ACE. There could be a mini divorce, that's a third ACE. So there's all these different ACEs, and once they start piling onto each other, they become toxic stress. So the toxic stress for those students can act out in behavior, or they internalize it, and we don't see those things until, of course, grades. I get them referred to special education, they're absent, and the research is showing that, of course, it's going to affect them not only mentally, but also physically, right? So as we get older as adults too, our lifespans actually can be shortened by the toxic stress, as I'm sure we've all dealt with and we feel ourselves. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to then ask the parents too to do what's called the ACE screener. The ACE screener, we're not asking for any kind of information about like what exactly has happened, but we're saying here are the different ACEs that can occur, how many ACEs have happened for this child. And then once we get a child in that really high category of ACEs, then we can also, offer them counseling services and also offer the parents recommendations of going out to get counseling services for their particular children. We've also, during this year, to backtrack on the professional development, have gone through, and I know that Dr. Giovanna will talk about that, we've gone through some PD for the staff. Being in special education, I always know a child walking in the door as well could have some baggage when they come in. And we always have to handle that and understand that there's going to be these antecedents, these things are going to happen before they come into the building. So they can be behavioral in class, and of course it might just not be me saying, take your math book out. It might be other things happening for them. So we're trying to make this more restorative for the students as well, how we talk to them, how we react to them, and then making them more resilient in these areas. So once they build that resiliency from an early age and then move on, they'll be able to cope better with some of these other things that come at them. We won't have to send them out and triage the students by the time they get to middle school, high school.
So what we've done so far was, between January and June, we partnered with Del Day, I can never say the last name, Consulting. He is a coworker of ours in the field who has a consulting business on the side and has really done work with the state, around the state, around some of these trauma-informed and social-emotional things. We partnered with him for all of our staff members, pre-K through 12, and we did various sessions. These sessions included QPR gatekeeper training, which is the mandated suicide training, which is question, persuade, refer, kind of. And this is basic level for our staff members. So if you're talking to a child or a child's in your class and something triggers you to realize that they may be sending you some type of signal, whether it's through a writing, a drawing, an email, this is to keep them questioning, persuading them, referring them so that you're in constant communication with them until we can get them to kind of the typical mental health professional that they need. Around that training, we also went to the idea of restorative practices to ensure that when we do have situations like this, or we do have students with trauma or different things that are triggering them for emotional anxiety, that our staff and our teachers and our students learn how to talk about it and how to come full circle for closure. One of the biggest things is there's events and situations that impact a child. They may bring that to a professional, whether it's one of Jess's child study team members. But what we have to do is we have to work as a district to teach the teachers and the staff members how to come full circle with that, how to bring closure to that, so that everybody who's involved in that conversation feels validated, heard, and can process the event. From there, we went to a more simpler elementary kind of style of what's called a listening circle, and that's truly just learning how to listen. And I think that's something that not only our staff but our students need to do. And the way we did it, which I talked a lot about with my colleagues around the county, it was very rewarding because we did listening circles for our staff members around the stresses of COVID and being an educational professional. So we modeled what we wanted them to do with either their class around certain topics if they feel the need, but it also gave them a safe space with the proper personnel to debrief what this past year in the educational environment was. That was our way to kind of get the buy-in for them for this year-long kind of work that we're going to do. Moving forward, our next step is this QPR training is going to become part of our mandated training for all our staff members. So when I run new teacher orientation in August, every single staff member will be part of our QPR training. From there, from July, or basically now until next June, we have two major initiatives that Christina and Jessica have talked about. Our secondary initiative is the Universal Mental Health Screener, where we basically are going to assess, identify, service, and kind of bring our students to the forefront for us. One of the greatest things that we have is that we're working alongside a professional services company that will bring their trained staff members, their clinicians in to be here and support us. They will train our crisis team. They will train our staff members. We are putting, Christina and I and Jess are working on what's called a parent workshop series around this work throughout the year and other work. But what that's going to do is it's going to kind of bring light and get the parents involved in knowing the kinds of discussions we're going to have, the kinds of questions to preview the survey and give consent, the safe space to ask questions, and to professionals and not to us, because sometimes there's that block when they're talking to school because they think if I ask that question, they're going to think of my child now every time they see them as the parent asking that question. One of the things we literally hot off the press as I was driving home today was that we are actually going to be, with this work, partnering with Tri-County Behavioral Health, which we've done work with, correct? And what they are willing to do at no cost to the district is come in during the universal screener, send one of their trained clinicians. Their trained clinician will be on site to look at the data as our 6 through 12 people are taking the assessment. They will automatically kind of decipher the data and say, we need to meet these people right now, do a risk assessment, get some help, and level them out. And then if we provide them a space and a time, they will continue to work as clinicians with our own students at no cost to the district. And it will be a true kind of medical service that Tri-County will then just work with the parents and either bill insurance or waive if there is no insurance possible. So we will basically have a mental health service site on site at no cost to us. All we have to do is provide them space. What that does is that really puts that separation between school, where now the parents will have more trust in the process because it's not us or the teachers or the guidance counselors, because there's a lot of stigma around this. That is our whole focus for secondary, while Jess basically went through what our focus was for elementary with the ACEs. Again, we want to inform the families. We are planning on having multiple, one this summer and then one, whether it's something at the PTO meetings, whether it's something at the back to school nights of plugging that next thing, something where we can kind of get this message out to families. Because one of the things this will also do is this also helps the families. We've had 2 issues this year where it wasn't so much the students, but it was the families that were our trigger as young as the preschool, where there was on Zoom and we needed to deal with it right away. And you know, these little pre-K students are there telling us in their own way that we need to help this family, we need to help them and their parents. So we really become ingrained in this work because we saw the need. And I really think it's gonna kind of, I don't wanna say move us forward because that's not the right term. And normally I talk about things that are moving us forward, but what it's gonna do is it's gonna put the supports in place that the students in this town need. And we're gonna be able to confidently say that we can meet their needs in that social emotional lens. That kind of grasps it.
Yeah, it's really not just a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
You know, that's usually typically what we do, is and that's not the fault of any, it's just what happens in schools, is that this particular thing with mental health that's been crossing over, you know, is we have to do what we can. And through networking and through everything we've done with our own communities of professionals, luckily we have a lot of outside support as well to get this done. And of course, we'll have forms for the families, we're going to discuss that with the families, and they'll be on those, you know, on the website in the beginning of the year, just like our other forms as well, to give permission and consent to do these screeners.
And, you know, the goal is really to be more proactive versus reactive. A lot of times with these students that, you know, we start to refer them to counselors or specialists that we have, they're already in crisis, or they've already been experiencing some of these things for quite an extended period of time, that the goal is try to identify these students earlier than we typically would have, to get them those supports so that they don't get to that crisis level. And that's really the goal of this work that we have been doing with Steve Fidelity and his group.
Hello.
Can you talk about the type of supports that are being provided for multilingual families that are in the homes that may not speak English, or English is not a language that they can communicate as effectively as they can in their native language? And can you also talk about perhaps for any of these therapists and interventionists, what familiarity they might have with working with a diverse culture in terms of supporting them as well?
So I can speak to both of those issues or topics. A lot of our screeners are coming in multiple languages based on the languages that we have. There are some, they're pre-done screeners, so there are certain ones that we can administer in home languages. Those languages that we don't have, we will be able to use one of our translating features to translate it, which is one of the things Jess and I are working on, an additional translator program for any of our documentation and forms. So that is one of the things right off the bat. In terms of pairing with our culture, when we're at the time to sit down and meet with the clinicians that Steve is going to provide for us, we're doing a lot of kind of digging into what our needs are and what our background are to pair us with somebody that is going to work with a similar community or has worked in communities that are more diverse rather than ones that are less diverse. So he has a whole team that he says he kind of matches based on the needs of the district. Of course.
And can you talk about how the restorative practices have been integrated into the student code of conduct, the infractions, and how has that information then been relayed perhaps in a parent handbook, or are you still in the process of informing families?
We're not there yet. So what this has been, and jump in, ladies, I don't mean to.
I mean, we started into restorative practices, and even talking to the administrators as well. We had some PD with the administrators too, and even just the language that you need to use. You know, like not just like what did you do, you know. So in what language that is and how that's going to change, and that will become from those steps that we're going to be changing some of that documentation. And
to kind of piggyback off of that, what we're doing, and we've been talking with Steve about this, is we're partnering more with some of the Diversity Alliance Committee people who are trained in that restorative practice as well, to bring in some of that training to supplement. So Steve's company gave us kind of that overview so that they have that intro to restorative practices, but our deeper work around restorative practices is going to come from the kind of diversity inclusive lens through Ashley and the Institute for Anti-Racist Education, where our first step that Rick and I had just started planning was an administrator training, how our administrators who deal with discipline, specifically our principals and vice principals, should be handling such situations. And from there, we have to bring in to our teachers. So We are at the very beginning of this work where I truly believe we are not going to be able to walk around saying that we are fully implementing a restorative circle or a restorative practice, probably for a good solid school year to school year and a half. But if we can get to the point of having our staff members kind of walk around with that little key card, I don't know if anybody who's done restorative practices, there's like the card on the back, it used to be a card that you put in your ID, and it kind of had the 12 questions so that you knew how to start this process. They were almost like sentence starters or engagers, that if you do get presented with some kind of adverse or situation, you know how to begin that conversation until you can get it to somebody who's more formally trained in it. We are reviewing both with our diversity committee as well as with our social emotional lens, all of our handbooks, all of our kind of disciplinary practices. I will tell you that off the bat, there will be revisions coming out for the fall, which will probably be revisions 1.0 that will constantly be going in the next year or so moving forward.
I think the most important thing too is the staff buy-in. You know, the staff, that's just begun.
I would like to compliment you ladies on being proactive. I mean, nobody told you to go do this. You saw a problem and you took initiative, and that to me is astonishing. I mean, amidst a pandemic, when you had 65 other things probably to do at any given moment. So thank you. Again, kids in the district of my own, it's just, and I see the impact, both professionally as a child study team member myself and as a mom. And you cannot learn if you have any of these ACEs or anything. I mean, you physically can't. So this will move us forward. This will tremendously move us forward. Do you think, and I love the idea of the TRICARE coming in and us giving them a space, do you think that's going to be like a daily thing? Will they be here? Will they set up a schedule of services where they offer services certain days of the week?
So what's going to happen, and literally, like I said, this is hot off the press, we have to schedule a meeting with Steve and the consultant from Tri-County to see what it's going to look like for us. That need is going to be based on what our screener results tell us. So they're looking to say that they will kind of service our most at risk to hopefully, if we can service with Tri-County and avoid kind of sending out or hospitalizing or doing that like intensive outpatient program, if they can, then they will be willing to service that.
Okay.
And then we'll have different levels of service.
So I'm going to jump in. So, and this is, like she said, hot off the press today.
I'm sorry,
It's literally written on my car bill as I was driving home.
And
I'm
she
not
was
joking.
jumping for joy. But in addition to that, we are formulating and really looking again at our, crisis team.
Right.
Who are those personnel here within the district at each of the different levels that can help service these students,
Sure.
ranging from school counselors that we identify, child study team members, school psychologists, school social workers. We're bringing in 2 West Bergen clinicians as well too this upcoming school year. And that directly relates to, some of those numbers that we have seen this year and the profound need that we're really seeing with our students.
Sure.
So we're going to be utilizing those people in addition to this wonderful new person that it looks like we're going to be able to use as well too, because we have to anticipate that the numbers are probably going to be quite high coming off of this pandemic. Research shows as well too, for these students that are struggling with some of these mental health and social emotional challenges, we're really just coming to the point where they're starting to process what this past year and a half looks like. They're still in that trauma stage. So we're not out of, we're not out of the storm yet in terms of helping these kiddos. So we're really trying to put that focus into what we're doing next year to make sure that we do have those appropriate supports in place for those kids. Because this is only as effective as the supports that we can be able to provide for them.
And we had a lot of discussion about if and when we were going to do this, to put all the cards on the table, because as you know, once we start identifying students,
That's what I was leading up to.
I start to get anxiety, right? So that we have been through that for the past probably about a year and a half. We've been talking about this, and we talked about, I even said to colleagues of mine too, like once we identify, we've got to, and the comment back to us all the time is, but they're there already. This is
Right.
true. So we've had to have things in place. So when we spoke to Steve at length about this as well, and he's so passionate about this too, is when we do this, we have the supports in place. These screeners with the children get, we get the parent permission, we'll do the screeners, we do them on specific days, and the data comes through. They do this almost like in a Google Form type situation. The data comes through in real time on the form for us to see, and as the red boxes light up, we can go, grab what we need to grab.
Right.
Like
I mean, it's just my concern from, just my perspective, and I'm sure you all have the same concern. The internal people you just named have other jobs to do.
Absolutely.
They have full job descriptions. This is a secondary job.
Which
Right?
is-
And, that's my concern. Not for the red flags, because they will be taken care of, but more for the yellow flags, that it may become overwhelming to service them internally with the people that we
Well,
have.
that's why his people are coming in too in the
Yes,
beginning of
so we
this.
we have Wes Bergen that we hired as our 2 crisis counselors. We have his team that comes in, deploys, and works with us to what we should be doing. And
On that
now
day.
add Tri-County on top of that. So I see it as kind of like, which box are you gonna go to
Right.
depending on what color you flag out.
Right, because we're looking at one guidance counselor in all 3 elementary schools, one guidance counselor in the middle school. I mean, so these may become the discussions we have as we plan a budget for going further, that it's not possible
Appointing
to
a school
maintain.
psychologist from the pre-K to come up for the, so, who's been training this very well. And
Right.
We thought long and hard about how that supports.
Sure, if you build it, they will come, we know that, in other instances, and it's so important. It's, it's just the reality that other things may get neglected in the.
And this could be the type of thing that we come back to you, because part of this is reporting out like our findings and
Yeah.
what we're doing, and it may be coming back to that point of saying like, listen, we need to find a way to get more help right now to get us through this initial, like, until we get them help,
Yes,
and then once we get it settled, then it kind of stops, and
Yeah.
I don't think we have that answer right now, but it's definitely a possibility. Sorry, Miss Ambrose.
I just wanted, I'm aware of the possibility, so.
Yeah. I have to say, we've been, I'm not shooting our horns, we've been very, very thorough, because we are living and breathing it on a daily basis. Every time we were seeing this year, and we've talked about this, Ms. Reagan and I will get on the phone probably maybe once or twice a month, right, to talk about some cases. And the beginning of the year was like, oh, we're on the phone once a week. And then it became, oh, we're on the phone every day. What's happening at 7 o'clock tonight? So, and then every time we came up with, okay, this is the scenario. Here, and I had to do like training on the spot too, to say, okay, remember, if this happens on remote and it's to 12:30, you've got to make sure we don't get the call at 4 o'clock. So, and I know that she didn't sleep many nights for those calls. But it was like, oh, we have this scenario, this is what we're going to do, and then another scenario comes up that's completely different with a family. And it's like, whoa,
You
okay,
can't
hold on.
predict all of the scenarios.
So we've learned so much even from the different scenarios that have occurred this year, and I gotta say, I think we've been through almost every scenario.
No. Talk about summoning the dragon, you really.
I mean, it really, no, but we have, and so which has been beneficial in the learning curve of this as well, because we already started coming to this year knowing that we had these
Yeah.
cases. But when they started to exacerbate, we were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And we were able to handle them, thank God.
Right.
But just knowing coming off of COVID as well, coming into the fall, students have been out for months,
Some of them
still.
haven't stepped back.
We
So
have
we
been
don't
having
September
staff
will be
members
the
too,
first.
which this has helped as well, that we didn't realize, some of this work
I was gonna say
really
that.
came to light, in that when we were doing some of this work and some of this like kind of decompressing, we were able to send some staff members out for help
Sure,
and support
sure.
that we had no clue.
I was gonna say, their staff members haven't been in the building
Yeah.
similar to the kids for a
18
year and
months
a half.
it's gonna be.
So they're gonna be transitioning back as well, so it's not just kids that we're talking about, there'll be staff members as well.
Right, on the upper level too, I mean, besides all this, the one thing we also put together was an alternative program we talked about opening last year, unfortunately because of COVID, we couldn't. But we're doing that this year, and that's for the, that's for the high school kids mainly for that.
Yeah.
And we do have a bunch that will start over there just because of the trauma that they've been through.
Well, again, I mean, huge thanks to all of you. It's not easy, and it's amazing that you guys do this and everything else that you do, so thank you.
Just to piggyback,
I felt it was important.
just to piggyback on what Abby's saying, I mean, Nobody would have blamed you for, leaving things stagnant, right? I mean, with the year we've had, but on the contrary, I think it's the district that we have, the ball's been moving forward on so many fronts, right? The construction one, the social emotional, the educational one, stuff. Thank you.
I was just gonna add that, I mean, social emotional is gonna be the number one topic for everybody in schools. To concur with what Abby said, like, it has to happen before you do anything else. My question just is, with all the different parts of this plan, I mean, I know from the statistics in the country, depression, anxiety, not only for kids, everybody, doubled. Where it was low 20s, now it's like mid 50s, maybe low 60s. When we have the parent, my question is, when we have these parent academies, or whatever we're gonna call them, the parents come in for the programs, do we have certain services for them? Not that we need to give it to them, but these other,
Yes.
like free services or different things, because
A bunch of resources, yeah.
There's a bunch of resources, and part of these parent workshop series, whatever we want to call it, we will have additional staff from the different companies there also to be kind of supportive and bring those resources, needs, identifier. Whenever we do something, whether it's virtually or in person, we haven't done much in person with Steve, but the virtual work, he always leaves kind of a waiting room open or a breakout room open for anybody to go into, which he included would do for staff members, because he's at that point where if somebody does trigger and wants to talk, then they have that space to do it there as well. So we will treat the parent workshops, because this is gonna rattle some things. It's kind of like one of those things, you pick up the rock and you don't know what's underneath it. We will have those supports in place for that as well.
yeah, I mean, my other thought is, like Dr. Morrow was saying, is this has always been a struggle for us, is how do you reach out to get families to know that English isn't their first language, however you're going to do it, through social media or newspapers, whatever it's going to be. So the same type of thing, like, are we gonna have people at these programs so someone doesn't speak English or
hoping
needs
there is
help
a
with that
way
communication?
that we can either see if they have somebody who's maybe bilingual or something to hit some of our populations, or there's a way we can kind of translate something or do something for that needs. One of my biggest fears, and I'll be completely honest, is getting that parent support out there to get them to get to this point, to listen to us, to know what we're going to do. My fear is that nobody's going to want to come to that initial meeting to hear about it, because a lot of it is not my child and not my family, or it doesn't impact us, whether it does or it doesn't. So that's my fear.
And my last thought is, I wonder if, I don't know if this is anybody out there that does this, but if we did the presentation in English and did it in Spanish or in different languages, then not only would they understand, but maybe that comfort zone that you're talking about would work. I don't know if there are people who do, we're doing the parent presentation in this language, and then the
Right,
same
and
topic
you-
with the same
Yeah.
support people.
I wonder if Language Line can do this, something with us, like partner with them. so-
Almost like that they do like a video, like a call, and it could be like
Right.
recorded, transcribed.
Translated call line that people
Or
call
like a
into
Zoom,
with
a
Language
separate Zoom that
Line.
they're talking.
We have that. We have a service called Language Line
I'm sure by now.
where we use that when for IEP meetings and other meetings where we have to translate. So we have a contract with them, and we use them all the time, but maybe we could do something with them for those parents. We could talk to them, I don't
But
know.
I'm talking even, but I mean like the presenters.
Well, that's what I mean.
Oh, the person's a real
Well,
person.
what happens, it's a real person.
Okay, no, I didn't know.
Yeah, so we might be able to work something out with them. We already have a
That would be
contract.
fantastic.
They have services besides phone lines.
Right, so there may be something we can work out with them. We use it in meetings on the phone, but they have other services.
Gotcha, okay.
The
No, thank you, that'd be
The
great.
biggest challenge may be getting them to the room.
Well,
right?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what they're
Yeah.
saying.
And
That's
that
a
goes
struggle
for
way to find
English-speaking parents and
Agreed.
non-English-speaking
Oh,
parents.
right.
It's all of their parents that
100%.
it's going to be an obstacle.
Like, I almost want to
Getting
like hijack some kind of meeting that
I was
they
going
go
to say,
to.
why don't
We
you
do have bilingual psychologists and stuff on the state website and things like that.
What about back to school night?
I was
Trap
saying
them in
the
a
same
room.
thing.
Well,
To intro it and do
might be a
something
place
with
that
it.
we can't run the program,
Right,
but
but
to
say,
intro
this
it.
is what we're doing.
Yes.
Make sure you
Yeah,
tune in,
support it.
live stream it.
Right,
Make sure you provide a
right,
YouTube
right,
link to
right.
live stream it from home, and maybe we could dub it in a different language via YouTube if we had
Yeah,
to.
we'll figure out a way.
But you definitely when you have them captive,
I agree with you.
introduce it.
Yes.
Because you won't, as a member of the PTO in the biggest school, I mean,
You still.
even those meetings, there's a lot of, it's
You might get 50 people, but still,
Right.
that's a small percentage of the
ten
population.
percent, right, yeah.
And we've had much more participation, too, virtually. I know
Yes,
in the special.
absolutely.
I agree with back to school nights is
Maybe I can do something at a halftime show. No, I'm just joking.
Dr. Rowland,
No, I was just a question, I think what you're seeing is, obviously, we're all excited for this work and hopeful, and we're just all giving suggestions, so like, the other thing I was thinking about was places of worship, is another avenue. Usually there's like a community board in many places of worships. Sometimes there's newsletters, so maybe you can reach out to those places of worship in terms of how you can promote that. I also do know that two of the largest districts in the county, I don't know what the service is, but I've been in meetings where they're like live, like someone's there with a headphone translating what's being said. I don't know what that works like, but that's something that, perhaps I can reach out to those districts and see what that process is like, just to try to give you all the available tools and resources.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Yeah, it kind of looks like the model you went.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I know it's already been said, but I agree. I want to commend the three of you. I mean, I can tell you they put a lot of time, as you can tell, a lot of time and effort into this year. So thank you guys. I know it's going to be worthwhile. I know it's a lot of work. I know it's going to be more work going forward. But thank you for putting the time in, getting to this point. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burrito. Ms. Goff, curriculum instruction, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Committee on Curriculum and Instruction recommend the following resolutions. CI 1 through CI 8 on page 3, CI 9 through CI 14 on page 4, and CI 47 on page 11 of the addendum. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Mr. Parr, any discussion?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
CI 47, is this overflow? Educational evaluations from min?
Chase, Wesley,
only over,
I was like, I want to make 750 in any batch.
just in case.
Okay, just in case. I got it, because I know we approved previous hours, so I just wanted to make sure.
she's definitely.
I wanted to make sure it was overflow.
Yes.
Anybody else? No. Roll call.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Ms. Evantrout?
Yes.
Ms. Goff?
Yes.
Dr. Morrell?
Yes.
Mr. Palooz?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Mr. Tatara?
Yes.
Mr. Turco?
With reservation on CI 10 and 11, yes on everything else.
Mr. Clavijo?
Yes. Ms. Goff, personnel, please.
Sure thing. The following resolutions are pursuant to the recommendation of the superintendent of schools. P15 on page 4, P16 through P23 on page 5, P24 through P34 on page 6, P35 through P39 on page 7, carried over onto page 8, and P48 through P54 on page 11 of the addendum, as well as P55 through P57 on page 12 of the addendum. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
I'm sorry, just one item, P20, I just want you to know, that was someone we were planning to hire who withdrew prior to the agenda, prior to getting here tonight. She was on the agenda and withdrew. That's why it says item removed. The person withdrew. That's all.
I just have one quick one.
Go ahead.
On P48, Mr. Hunsinger is retiring.
He is.
Good for him. He's
We
really.
just notified of that 2 days ago, a day ago, 2 days ago, recently, very recently. And Ms. Linus also,
Yeah.
we just found that out today, this morning.
Okay.
So,
No worries. I'm just
Yeah.
surprised because he looks younger. Okay. He does.
We did something wrong.
I think it's,
I'm
I know,
envious.
right? I'm envious. Okay, thank you.
I just, one last
Go ahead.
thing. For P15, we'd like to wish Trish well
Thank you.
as she
Thank you very much.
retires.
Appreciate that.
Roll call?
Ms. Erentrop,
Yes.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Dr. Morel,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Abstain on P22, yes to everything else.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Tatara,
Yes.
Mr. Turco,
Recuse myself on P15 as well as P51 and P52. Yes on everything else.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Mr. Turco, Finance and Administration, please.
Thank you, sir. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Committee on Finance and Administration recommends the following resolutions: F40 through 845 on page 8 and 858 on page 13 of the addendum. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Paluso. Discussion? Mr. Rito?
Just quickly on A50, I just wanted to tell you what that is. So we've worked with the Passaic County Workforce Development Center a couple of years ago. We had students, some of our Bear Cave students who worked through the Passaic County Workforce Development Program here in the district with our custodians. So what happened was this year, 8 of our students, 4 from the high school and 4 from the Bear Cave, on their own, went to the Passaic County Workforce Development and were looking for summer work. And they didn't have anywhere to place them. They came back to us and said, is there a possibility we could place them in your district? They would hire the staff to support them and work with them and pay them. You know, it's all done through the Passaic County Workforce Development, but because they're working in the district with us, we felt we needed to approve that program. So there'll be 8 students. They'll be working with our tech department and our maintenance and custodial staff. But again, the staff that's hired to work with the students will all be taken care of through the Passaic County Workforce Development Program. Right, that's one thing.
Thank you. Roll call?
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Dr. Morel,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Tatara,
Yes.
Mr. Turco,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Ms. Erentrop,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Ms. Erentrop, claims, please.
Thank you. In accordance with NJAC 6A:23-2:11B, C3, and C4. CL 46, approval of the June 2021 bill list. It is recommended that the board approve the bill list for the month of June 2021.
Second.
Second by Mr. Turco. Discussion? Roll call?
Dr. Morel,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Tatara,
Yes.
Mr. Turco,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Ms. Erentrop,
Yes.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Mr. Tatara, Buildings and Grounds, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the addendum, page 13, pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, Committee on Buildings and Grounds recommends the following resolutions. BG 59, page 13. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Second by Ms. Goff. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Turco,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Ms. Erentrop,
Yes.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Dr. Morel,
Yes.
Mr. Paluso,
Yes.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Tatara,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Committee liaison reports, we just met 2 weeks ago, may not have any reports, but just in case, Mr. Carr, do you have anything for legislator?
Nothing on legislative.
Very good. I have nothing on PCSBA. Ms. Goff, do you have anything?
For NJSBA, just a reminder to my fellow board members, Mr. Clavijo sent out an email today. If you have not already submitted your CSA evaluation, please do so. There was an extension to the 30th of July, I believe. And that is all.
Thank you. Mr. Paluso, anything on CPAC PTOs?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Tataro. Anything from your end?
Mr. President, the only thing I'll say, nothing on building grounds and council liaison report, but for policy, we are still in the works of making some revisions for the post-meal recommendations, and we will also be discussing, I think, in the next meeting regarding the social media policy.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Turco, anything with Finance Administration?
Nothing really to report, but as a finance chair, I would like to bid a fond farewell and a good luck. I know it's been said a few times over the past few weeks. Trudy, you've been a true pleasure, a credit to our district. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turco. Public be heard. As a reminder, when submitting questions or comments via email, please be sure to include your first and last name, address, and your question. No emails? Thank you. We'll go through new business or old business. Does anybody have anything on your end, Mr. Lewis?
None of that category.
Dr. Morale? New business, old business? Mr. Turco?
No, nothing, thank you.
Scott? No. Mr. Sarah? New business, old business? Bruce, anything?
No.
No? Mr. Clark? All right, and any comments, general comments and questions from the board? Anything from your end, Mr. Child? No?
Yeah, thank you, Trudy, congratulations.
Bruce?
No, good, thank you.
I should wrote something down because I normally forget half the things I want to say in the general comments. But, so I put a little something together. As stated by Henry Ford, coming together is beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. It is evident that our district as a whole, including parents, students, teachers, and administrators and staff, came together to overcome the challenges faced by COVID-19 this year. We look forward to the upcoming school year and the continued progress our district is making, as well as the enhancements provided by the referendum. Lastly, I would like to again thank Mrs. Trudy Engel on the success in her future endeavors. I want to thank you personally for all your efforts, participation, and cooperation on making our district what it is today. I hope everyone enjoys their summer.
Thank you, Mr. Sarah.
I'd just like to thank everyone, the board, for the past 6.5 years, giving me the support, giving me the opportunity to start here. It's really been an honor to work here. Thank you.
Here, here.
Anything, Mrs. Scott?
Trudy, you'll be missed. You better come visit us. I'll come visit you. It might be weird if I'm sitting in another board meeting somewhere else, but I will. I would just like to say, as someone who attended both graduations, it was super heartwarming this year. I think doubly touching after COVID. It was as if COVID had never happened, actually. The stands were full. It was beautiful. Just the students that. It's always, I love attending. I've been attending for years. I had a graduate this year finally, but I've been attending for years, not knowing anybody. It's one of my favorite things to do because you really see what everyone does makes such a big difference. I don't know, are the links still work? Are they archived?
Yes.
You didn't get a chance to see the videos. I've watched the 8th grade one several times. The time my son didn't hug me. But. And I keep watching and showing him. But if you haven't watched it, it's really just a heartwarming thing to watch and see what amazing things our students are up to and how far they'll go. So super proud mom to all those kids I don't even know, but it was a very proud day.
Thank you, Mr. Turco.
I'm good, thank you.
Dr. Morale?
No, good luck, Trudy, and ditto everything Mr. Tutaro said.
Mr. Blues?
Sure, I'll wrap it up. I do agree with what Abby said. Graduations were great. Hopefully they all know where their ketchup is now.
They know.
It's in the back of their mind now to know where their ketchup is. But Trudy, I just want to personally thank you for everything you've helped me with throughout the years. And the fact that you're leaving our district in such great shape is a testament to everything that you stand for. So thank you for your time there.
Trudy, and I'll follow up on that. It goes without saying that you're an instrumental piece of the product that we've developed. So thank you very much. You'll certainly be missed. We appreciate everything you've done. Also, for the record, want to share with everybody. Everybody already knows, but just for the record, that Mr. Spirito was recognized as Superintendent of the Year from Passaic County. It was no surprise to us when we heard. We've known for a long time that we have one of the best in the industry. So thank you for your leadership, and it's a true pleasure to serve along with you all these years. Everybody that's, like Mr. Patera said, I mean, it's only 6 months halfway into the year, but it feels like it's been an eternity. I mean, and part of your presentation was that some of the students, some of the parents, some of the staff members still have to process the trauma. And I think, in a small part or in a large part, that applies to everybody. We don't know how it affected us. And, as we wind into the summer, I think we're all going to come to terms with, whatever that is for us. So just have a great summer, and thank you for everything. And on that note, there's no private session. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Patera?
Yes.
Mr. Turco?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Ms. Aaron
Yes.
Ms. Gov?
Yes.
Dr. Morrell?
Yes.
Mr. Kalu?
Yes.
Mr. Reicher?
Yes.
Mr. Korea?
Yes.
Hey. I'm gonna get a little-